It is now my pleasure, and I'm sure your relief, to get tonight's reading started by introducing our first reader, fiction writer Patrick Nathan. Patrick studied at the University of Minnesota, where writers like Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Vladimir Nabokov tore him away from the study of architecture without too much effort, but a bit of family disapproval. The group holds monthly potlucks at the start of each residency, and Patrick has proved that he's not only a great writer, but a great cook. And he spends a lot of time experimenting with recipes from French cookbooks, which he's very happy to share with the group, which we all appreciate. Above all, he is a voracious reader and writer. At our last seminar with Marlon, as the group was talking about what they had been working on since our last meeting, Patrick stated nonchalantly that he is working on stories in a novel that he's about 47,000 words into. Marlon looked at him and said, "You're 47,000 words into it? Did I mention I hate you?" This was said with great admiration and respect. Please welcome Patrick Nathan.
When I imagined this, the room was a lot emptier. But thank you for coming, and thanks to the Loft and the Jerome Foundation for putting me up here and all my fellow mentees up here. If you read the news, as most writers often do, it's easy to forget things like compassion and generosity, and to be reminded of this in such a way by such organizations is kind of stunning. So this program is the real deal, and it's wonderful. So thank you. And I'd like to thank my parents, who, even though they've now accepted that I will never be financially successful, they are still very supportive and encouraging, and that's more than I could ask for. I'd like to thank my friends for putting up with my eccentricities, and my fellow mentees, especially Nona, who tolerates my 1,500-word emails 3 times a week. And I'd like to thank Michael for the upcoming moment of heroism when he retrieves my manuscript from the fire as I try to burn it. So I've really been interested lately in the idea of novels and stories. I read A Visit from the Goon Squad last year, and it's a marvelous book, and it kind of tricks you into going somewhere that you don't really expect. So I'm kind of fascinated by the idea, but I kind of wanted to try it on a smaller scale, so I thought a story in Flash. So this story that I'm working on is a story in 5 tiny stories. So I'm going to read you one of the excerpts tonight, and they're all designed to work independently, so you don't really need to know anything about it. He doesn't get it, and trying is totally pointless. It's only been 10 minutes, and I already want to undo him, like, oops, Control-Z, and I don't have a dad. I told you, I say. I have coffee all the time, every day. The menu flaps in his hand, and he lays it on the table. Look, Joel, he says. It's hard to hear him over traffic. This is our first time out. I don't want to get in trouble or do the wrong thing. Even if it's true and you do drink coffee, you can go without it for 1 day. I like how he calls it the first time out, like there'll be more. But I'm fucking exhausted. I say exhausted like you hear in movies. Exhausted with a deep breath. If I go without coffee 1 more minute, I'm falling asleep, is how I say it. You're 13 years old and already addicted to caffeine. You expect me to believe that? I flutter my eyes. Sorry. I open my mouth like I'm yawning. Sorry, what? So tired. Isn't coffee supposed to stunt your growth or something? Okay, you got me. I sit up and shrug my shoulders. I'm really 22. Been hooked on coffee since 3rd grade. He pulls his lips into his teeth like he's gonna laugh, but he doesn't. The wind grabs the menu and tries to pick it up, but I put the salt shaker on top. It rattles a little, but it stays there. Paperweight, he says, pointing at it. I know what a paperweight is. Of course you do. You've probably been to college, right? Since you're 22, you must know everything. Yeah, that's where I got my engineering diploma. Degree. That's what I said. He leans over the table like nobody's supposed to hear. You're funny, but you know if you were 22, Becky would have been 9 years old when she had you. Becky? Who the fuck is Becky? Nobody calls her Becky, I say when I figure it out. He doesn't ask, well, what do people call her, or what's she go by now? I would have been 5 when you were born, he says. 4 when me and Becky, I would have been 4. I laugh when I think of him and Mom, little kids dressed up like they're playing house, except with a real baby. Then I think of my real age, and their real ages. He's 27 now. When I found him online and saw that, I had to do the math. I'm 13, and I've never even kissed a girl. After we order, we just look around the street. It's a weird place, and I can't figure out why. I say stuff like, this is a weird neighborhood, and he tells me it's not. He tells me it's safer. You can walk down the street at night, he says. All I see are people with weird hair and clothes that look like they've been chewed up by a dog. Some guys are so skinny you can see their ribs through their shirts. He tells me nobody gets shot here. He tells me it's a young, vibrant population, whatever that means. He tells me that, and I look around and see no kids, only people his age. The fuck's he mean, young? Bunch of fucking weirdos, I tell him. Does she really let you talk like that? Fuck, shit, ass, bitch, cock, dick, fuck. He frowns and looks down into his mug. Some kind of tea, a compromise he tried to call it, but I wouldn't touch it. It's his tea now. When the food comes, he tells me this is his favorite place in the city. He says it like he hasn't said it 50 times already. Take a bite out of the sandwich and just about gag. Maybe it's too spicy, he asked. Maybe it just sucks. The sandwich bursts open when I slap it down on the plate, like a piñata full of shit dogs wouldn't eat. You could send it back, he says. Yeah, so they can give me some other piece of crap. He sets his sandwich down on the plate and looks over at the patio door. The waitress comes out and goes back in, but he doesn't wave or anything. We sit there a few minutes. Feels like we're waiting for the waitress, but we're not. The people he calls young all smoke. They walk with coffee cups and water bottles and smoke. It's like you can't live here without looking faggoty or retarded. So is that what you want to do, he asked me. His sandwich is still sitting on his plate, only one bite out of the corner. Engineering? I don't know. I guess. What kind of engineering? Engineering? Like schematics and shit. You want to design things? Machinery? I lean forward in my chair and shrug. I think it's only like a few more years until we amp up the space program, right? I figure by the time I'm out of college, they'll need tons of people ready to work. I mean, we're not that far from interstellar travel, right? I hate telling him this, but I figure who cares? It's not like he'll send me to a different school or anything. It's not like I'll ever see him again. You might be right, he says. He looks out over the street like he's wondering where they'll put the launch pad. What he doesn't know is that the ship will be so big they'll have to build it in space. Everyone will have to go up there by shuttle, like buses that take you to the airport. I think it's great that you're into that, he says. Whatever, I say. I know it's stupid. It's not stupid. At least you find it fascinating. I've always thought about that kind of stuff, too. I don't know. He shrugs and gives me that look like anything can happen, but on him it just looks dumb. We're going to have to do something soon, he says. We're running out of space. That's totally the thing, I say. There's so much more room out there, whatever. There's the whole solar system, he says. Then the entire galaxy, anywhere from 100 billion to a trillion solar systems. They're not sure. I totally know all this. See, you've read some shit online, I say. Then all the galaxies in the universe, he says. They have no idea how many. Then other universes we don't know anything about. Sounds like he knows about this stuff. What other universes, I ask. I read an article the other day, he says. It's about this thing called string cosmology. Basically, it's a bunch of physicists who come up with ideas about other universes. They theorize and work through math problems, so everything they come up with makes sense, but really there's no way to prove it. Everything they say could be totally made up. All these universes could just be in their imagination. That sounds stupid. I think it sounds poetic, he says. He looks up for a second, like he can see these other universes. They're probably satisfied, right? Maybe that kind of stuff makes them happy. But it's not real. You can't prove any of it. Do you have to prove it? Yeah, that's what science is for. How are they scientists? They're scientists. He says it like it's a rule. Like he's my dad and that's that. I try not to laugh. But still, he says, the whole thing is very poetic. If by poetic you mean gay, then yeah, it's totally poetic. Pick up a hunk of beef from the exploded sandwich. By itself, it's not so bad. Gay, huh? He says. but not like he wants me to say anything. The waitress finally comes back and he asks for the bill. Before she brings it, his phone rings and he answers it at the table. He kind of curls into himself like it's private, but there's a lull in the traffic and I can hear him. "I'm just out for lunch with Joel," he says. "Joel, my son. I told you I had a son. I'll be home soon. I love you." "Why can't I say that? I love you and I feel like telling you that." He looks over at me. "No," he says, "not yet. I think we have to work up to it." "Yeah, love you. Okay, I'll stop. See you soon." She comes back with the bill, his card stuck to it with the clip on the pen cap. He tips double what Mom would have tipped and writes "thank you" on the bottom with a smiley face. We walk past a coffee shop on the way to his car on the next block, and he buys me a 12-ounce. He doesn't say anything when I load it up with cream and 3 packets of sugar. "Maybe," I say as we keep walking, "maybe after they explore all the stars here, in this galaxy, I mean, they'll move on to another galaxy or two. A few years later, maybe they'll find out how to get to one of those other universes. The other ones, I mean. Maybe they'll find out more about them." "Maybe," he says. "Yeah, maybe you're right. When you build that ship, you should tell me about it. They'll probably put you on the first voyage, you know." "You think? You being the head engineer? The designer? Think of all the movies. I built this ship," the engineer always says. "She can take it," the engineer is always yelling at the captain. Of course they'd bring you. I think of what the opening or the pathway to the next universe will look like. Something swirling, probably. "I think you're right," I tell him. In another universe, sound might travel faster than light, or gravity won't matter. What I'm trying not to think is, if that was his boyfriend or whatever on the phone, how do I exist? It's almost like I'm the one who should have been undone, not him. Control Z and I was never here. "Well, when you go there and see it," he's saying, "you'll have to tell me what it was like." I feel like I should say something like, "You can come with," but I know he knows I'm too old to say that. "Thanks for the coffee," I tell him.